The 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season is upon us, and oh boy, this is looking like it's gonna be a juicy one. With the new changes to the next-gen car, the ongoing TV contract negotiations with chance of a potential split happening, and all the 75th anniversary season festivities going on, this upcoming season is going to be one for the ages. Hopefully. And for these 34 men, they hope that they get to be the ones to raise the Bill France Cup in November. These are their stories. 2022 was the year of Ross Chastain, and as the iceberg so eloquently put it, it was main character energy. Now the question becomes, can he keep it up? They were by far the surprise team of 2022, but they didn't win another race after that Talladega win, which they kinda sort of backed into by getting lucky. We'll see how this season goes for Chastain and company, but considering the fact that they were still ridiculously consistent at the end of the season, I think this team should be a championship threat still. Let's be real, Austin Cindric won the Rookie of the Year by default last year. He really didn't have hardly any competition to battle him for it. This year, I just want to see growth and improvement. Be a little bit more consistent at the ovals. Get some more top 10 and top 15 runs in there. He had a pretty solid rookie season. All this team needs to do is just build from there. They're on the right track. I think Austin Dillon has taken up the Paul Menard role in the NASCAR Cup Series. He's the guy that's just there. If you're lower in points than Austin Dillon, you're probably not having a good season. And if you're higher in points than Austin Dillon, you're probably having a good season. Austin Dillon is the NASCAR equivalent of being 500. And do I expect that to change this year? No. Yeah, he might be having a little bit of a boost with Kyle Busch now in-house as his teammate, but I have seen no evidence to suggest that Austin Dillon won't be more than what he is. A guy who runs 16th every week and will have an occasional top 10 run with about 3 to 5 random top 5 runs thrown in there. That's just who he is. The writing is on the wall. This is in all likelihood the final season of Kevin Harvick's legendary NASCAR career. He says that he'll make a final decision come Daytona, and what I'm about to say now might age like milk if he does decide to come back, but I don't see that happening. I think this is it. The last ride of the closer. The last few greats didn't get the send-offs they deserve. Kurt Busch had to leave due to injury. Jimmy Johnson's farewell tour was extremely dampened due to the COVID pandemic. And Matt Kenseth, less said about that season the better. This year, I think all of us as NASCAR fans should take our time to truly appreciate how great of a driver Kevin Harvick is. His list of accomplishments are some of the best this sport has ever seen. He's only one of 10 people to ever win 60 or more races. As Kyle Petty would say, that's incredible. He may be in his old man yells at cloud stage in his career, but that shouldn't take away from how good of a driver Harvick is. I hope he can go out on a high note in his swan song season. Let's be blunt. Last year was a disappointing championship defense for Larson. I'm just saying. Yeah, he would have made the championship 4 had he not choked at the Roval due to his win at Homestead. But you look at his wins, outside of Homestead, he really wasn't all that impressive. He had a good run at Auto Club. However, he had to wreck Elliott to get the win. He had a good run at Watkins Glen. However, he had to wreck Elliott to get the win. He looked a lot like his CGR days. Just incredibly streaky. However, I think he might bounce back. I'm not expecting the 10 wins again, no. Not with this next-gen car and the parity and, well, the way it just kind of falls apart randomly in some races. It's going to be way too chaotic for him to win 10 races in a year. I think we are still several years away from seeing that happen again in the Cup Series. But I wouldn't be shocked if he got 4, 5, maybe even 6 wins. No one has really dominated a race in the next-gen era except for Kyle Larson at Homestead last year. And he's got Cliff Daniels, who is, quite honestly, at least the 3rd best crew chief in the garage. So I think this 5 team is going to be extremely deadly. Watch out. They might still be streaky here or there, but I think they're going to be way more of a threat for this championship than they were last season. If it means anything, it probably cannot get much worse than it did last year for Brad Keselowski. I mean, wow, that was terrible. Especially the first 2/3 of the season. He didn't even get a top 5 until Homestead. Once it became the season was lost by, I don't know, the first Atlanta race, all I wanted to see out of this 16 was improvement. And that's exactly what I saw in the last third of the year. Not just in this team, but in RFK as a whole. This team is trending in a very positive direction. And when was the last time we said that about Roush? 2005? I would look out for Brad Keselowski to make a big splash this season. This is going to be a bounce back year for him. If not in good runs, but in probably the amount of people he accidentally spins out. If Corey LaJoie won the second Atlanta race last year, society would be much better off. We would have cured cancer, solved world hunger, redistributed all the wealth. We would have gone to Mars. Okay, maybe that's a little impractical, but things would be a whole lot better, especially for Corey LaJoie. It just feels like his career is stalling out to me. There's no real progress being made. At least Matt DiBenedetto, the last lovable underdog, made some progress throughout his career and steadily rose up the ladder until it all fell apart. But LaJoie? That's just not happening. I think he's a pretty alright driver, and I think a lot of the problems that plague him is because of Spire, and I don't think Spire is all that good. But I'm just not seeing the progress that I think we should be seeing out of Corey LaJoie, which sucks. I like him. He's a great personality. However, it's just not working out right now. Hopefully he can turn that around this season, but what evidence suggests that that's gonna happen? At least he can throw a football really well? The rest of the NASCAR Cup Series garage better watch out. This man is mad. We are about to see a rejuvenized Kyle Busch go on a tear in the Cup Series. At least in theory. This 8 team has been trending in a positive direction for the past few years and has greatly benefited with the reset by the next-gen car. Kyle Busch is still Kyle Busch, and if you look at the numbers, should be entering his peak production years as a driver. This could be an extremely deadly combination. And when was the last time we said that about an RCR team? Much like Roush, RCR has been on a downward spiral for years. But with Kyle Busch now in the fold, this is a legit dark horse championship team. An RCR team! I think it's pretty clear that Busch got the raw end of the deal with the JGR contract situation. And now he's going to be extremely motivated to prove everyone wrong. To prove Gibbs wrong, prove any potential sponsors that backed out wrong, to prove social media wrong. Maybe, I don't know, probably not, but hey, he's got a lot of haters on there. He is going to be a major threat. This may age like milk left out in Phoenix in July, but I am going to stand by it. Kyle Busch is going on a big revenge tour. Watch out. You know, the worst part about Chase Elliott winning the 2020 championship is that we can no longer make choking Chase Elliott memes. It's right there. I mean, the dude is from Georgia. We know how much fun it is to make fun of Georgia sports choking. Anyway, Elliott did kind of choke away the 2022 season. Let's be real here. He was the most consistent guy, had a pretty terrible playoffs, somehow barely limped into the championship 4, and then he spun himself out on Ross Chastain's nose. I think any advantage, though, that Elliott may have had on Larson might be lost. Larson was not the typical Larson we were expecting, but he's still Kyle Larson. I think Larson's going to close that gap on Elliott. And so now the thing with Elliott is, can he keep going? Can he stay the top dog of Hendrick Motorsports, or will that balance shift again? Will Larson take that spot from him? It's going to be very interesting to see that cat and mouse game play out. And as for Elliott, I mean, I'm expecting the standard 3 to 5 wins, probably 2 of them on a road course, and making it to at least the round of 8. Wait a minute, Almirola's still in the Cup Series? Hey, I could have sworn he was retired. Hey, Eric, weren't you supposed to be retired? Oh, Smithfield wrote you a blank check? Okay, never mind. He's back. Is he gonna do anything? Probably not. He's Eric Almirola. While Denny Hamlin is still a really good driver, I think his championship contending days are done. He's 42, and statistically that means that's the start of the declining performance of a driver. Look at his teammate, Truex, same age. he had a pretty bad dip last year. He was still good, he could still compete, but Truex was not a championship threat. He was never a championship threat last year. And I think Hamlin's gonna be in the same boat. He'll probably win a few races. He's still really good, and I think Hamlin cares about stats, and I think he's gonna want to join the 50-win club. He's just a couple wins away. However, a championship, I think it's out of the cards, which sucks because that's how everyone's going to measure his career. He'll always be looked at as the guy that couldn't get it done. It's a shame, but hey, at least he runs a team with Michael Jordan. Speaking of which, I think this is where we're going to see most of Hamlin next season. I really don't care that much about Hamlin's driving performance in 2023. What I care about is Hamlin, the car owner. Ever since he formed 2311 Racing, Hamlin has been probably the most outspoken driver in the Cup Series. And wouldn't you know it, there is a big TV contract negotiation coming up this season. Billions of dollars are on the line. Why is that important? Well, the teams need more money. They need more money to keep themselves in operation because the way the economic model of the sport is right now, it's not sustainable for these teams. And you know who leaked that to the public? Why, it was Curtis Polk. You know, the business partner of Michael Jordan, the guy who owns 2311 Racing with Denny Hamlin. If you don't think Denny Hamlin is going to be the guy front and center in these negotiations, you're wrong. Denny Hamlin, the car owner, is going to be pivotal for the future of this sport. And hey, he also formed that driver's advisory council thing last season. Remember that? I don't, but that happened. We're talking about a guy who said all of NASCAR's leadership needed to change before NASCAR threatened him with the Tommy from Goodfellas treatment. So this is going to be a very interesting battle among millionaires arguing over billions of dollars for the future of this sport. Yeah, some people might not care, but I do, dang it! And if all that drama with his race team wasn't enough, his sponsor FedEx is likely gone at the end of this year, or at the very least have a reduced sponsorship capacity. So now he's going on his Kyle Busch trying to find sponsorship arc. You know, the most interesting things about Denny Hamlin's career is actually all the stuff he does off of it right now. I guess it comes with the territory of being Michael Jordan's business partner. Let's make no mistake, last season was a massive disappointment. Yes, Blaney was one of the top 3 best drivers throughout the season. Top 5. But he can't win! He just can't win! I don't know what it is, why it is, I don't get it, but Blaney and this 12 team just cannot win. And that needs to change now. They have to figure out a way to finish out these races, close out these races, and win the races they are supposed to win. Because frankly, as a Blaney fan, I am sick and tired of sitting on my couch every Sunday and just being like, wow, at least they didn't completely blow it this time. At the very least, the very least, they have to make a championship for appearance. His teammate just won a championship, and some of the other great young drivers around him like Elliott, Larson, Bell, Chastain, they're making it to the championship 4 right now. Blaney is not. This team they have to do something. They have to do something big. If it's not championship 4, it's like winning 5 races. If it's not winning 5 races, it has to be championship 4. Something needs to happen with this team. They have to do something big, because if not, questions are going to be raised. We need answers as to why this team is not breaking into that upper elite echelon. Is it Blaney? Is it the crew chiefs? Is it the team? Is it Penske? Like, what is it? What's the problem? I'll just leave it at this. As a fan, all I ask for out of Ryan Blaney, out of Jonathan Hassler, out of Roger Penske, is just show me that you are who I believe you can be. And that is a top championship team. If you can do that, I'm happy. If not, I don't know. I might just cry myself to sleep at night. I really don't know what to do. I mean, I'm just some guy recording a dumb video sitting in his closet right now. So there's not much I can do. I will rant about it. I can at least do that. I can rant about it on the internet. Oh boy, this is what my life has become. I should really get on that college degree. Okay, moving on before I start crying about how sad my life is. Will Chase Briscoe still perform miracles for me? I don't really know. Did this team improve at the end of the year? I think they did. He was actually kind of like sneaky good last season at the end there. I didn't see that coming. So good job to him. Hats off to that team. If they can keep that form up, they should be a playoff contender. I mean, he's got to win. He's shown he can win races and run up front. So yeah, Chase Briscoe, keep performing those miracles, buddy. He's back. Not only is the Dinger back in the Cup Series, this is probably the best version of AJ Allmendinger we have ever seen, with the amount of road courses on the schedule and him being top 10 at several oval races last season. Watch out. I'm serious. Watch out. We all know how good AJ Allmendinger is, and with the culture that's over there at Colleague Racing just working, AJ thriving in it, he's going to be a very deadly threat this season. That is, if this 16 team can cut back on the mechanical failures, because that kind of happened a lot last season. So hopefully they can cut back on that, but with these next gen cars, that's kind of difficult to do. So good luck. I feel like we are all just collectively waiting on Chris Buescher to just have that breakout moment. Oh wait, he did that at Bristol. Never mind. He's had his breakout moment. All right, 2023, the age of Chris Buescher begins in the Cup Series, right? Yeah. However, I think Buescher can now really start throwing his name into the ring of that like B-level tier of drivers. You know, drivers like a Alex Bowman or a Bubba Wallace or Daniel Suarez or like Austin Dillon, Eric Almirola, like those guys that are those fringe playoff contenders. I think Buescher has now firmly put his name right there with them. And I, for one, think that Buescher is going to be a guy who is in the middle of this playoff fight. We forget, in 2021, Buescher was actually in the playoff grid for a large portion of the year. He ultimately did fall out of it, but he was there. He was a relevant contender. I think that's going to pick up again this year. As I said with Brad Keselowski, the way RFK is trending, they are trending up. I like what this team is building, and I think Buescher's going to really benefit from that. So watch out for him. He could be good. Wow, that's already like the 12th watch out for him I think I've said for drivers. Man, this next gen car is really jumbled up the middle of the field. Anyway, I am honestly shocked that Martin Truex Jr. is still racing right now. I thought for sure he was going to retire at the end of last season. I really did. The fact that he's here is really shocking. Although that Johnny Morris money, it can kind of talk a little bit, you know? That dude spends so much money on NASCAR. I'm sure he also pays a pretty penny for those driver salaries, you know? Anyway, regardless, I think this year is probably going to be the year he retires. I don't foresee him racing anymore. I mean, he signed a 1-year deal. The way that sounds like to me is like Truex was not quite ready to retire yet, but he's getting there. So, like I said for Harvick, we should appreciate him. He's had a great career, an incredible story. The fact that he's built a Hall of Fame career for himself when his career looked dead in the water just 8 years ago. Incredible what he has done with his career. So this year, we need to respect that about him and show our appreciation and support for him as a driver. And hopefully, he doesn't miss the playoffs this year because of wacky and wonky next-gen car shenanigans. Although knowing Truex's luck, that's probably going to be difficult. If you were one of the 5 people that saw the first video I've made about NASCAR, which was the 2022 playoff prediction, you will see how much of a dunce I am for saying that Christopher Bell wasn't ready yet. That is my Skip Bayless what in the world take for today. Bell is here. He has arrived. The playoffs that he had last season were incredible. Too bad he couldn't cap it off with a championship, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he drove his butt off to get there. And with Kyle Busch gone, Truex likely gone at the end of the year, Hamlin, his future's a bit murky. He's got not much left to go in his career. This is Bell's time. This is his moment to step up and become the guy for JGR, if he didn't already do that last season with his playoff performance. I think 2023 is the year Christopher Bell becomes the new superstar of JGR, and it warms my heart to see the JGR 20 car finally being the flagship car of JGR. Haven't seen that since Tony Stewart was in that car and that random 2013 season for Matt Kenseth. Okay, show of hands, who else forgot that Harrison Burton was in the Cup Series for most of last season? You can all put your hands down now. Honestly, I have no expectations for Burton. I guess he can only go up from here? I don't know. Maybe just a few more top 10 runs? I guess. I don't know. It's Harrison Burton. I mean, everybody knows this dude got rushed up to the Cup Series last year. So I think it's just going to take a couple more years of adjusting to make back that lost time that he's had from his development. Woohoo! Congratulations, Joey Logano. You are the defending Cup Series champion. Logano is now a 2-time champion in the Cup Series. Wow, as Kyle Petty would say, that's incredible. And he's got a new head of hair. Would you look at that? What a beautiful, majestic mane. You know, we haven't seen a truly elite championship defense season since Jimmy Johnson's multiple championships in a row. Let's see how Logano rebounds from his championship. Can he defend the champion? Can he become the first driver to win back-to-back champions in this knockout-style playoff format? Oh, wait a minute. This is an odd number year. Oh, yep, write him off. He's only going to win like 2 races and get eliminated in the round of 8. Moving on. Last season was the best season of Bubba Wallace's career, but nobody is going to remember that. No one's going to remember the pit crew struggles that got resolved mid-season. No one's going to remember Booty Barker having some of the best races as a crew chief in his career. No one's going to remember the team rebounding and becoming one of the most consistent teams in the garage at the last bit of the season. No one's going to remember Bubba straight up beating everybody at Kansas. No one is going to remember the vast improvements in Bubba's driving craft. Nope, none of it's going to be remembered. All because he stupidly decided to fight Kyle Larson after wrecking him intentionally. If he can put that big distraction behind him, then this 23 team, I think they are primed and ready to finally be the team that NASCAR has desperately been hyping them to be. With the way that Bubba was able to come back, jump into the car in Martinsville after being suspended, and just grind and drive that thing out into a top 10 finish, I'm telling you, his driving craft has greatly improved. Bubba is maturing into a formidable driver right before our eyes. Yeah, the road courses still leave a lot to be desired, but he's getting better at pretty much every other discipline. So if he can get past that, he is a legit threat for not just the playoffs, but winning races. This 23 team is primed and ready to break out. Now, do I see like a 4-win season? No. I don't think Bubba's really ever going to become that kind of driver. But the drivers I've been talking about, Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher, kind of like those middle to good range drivers. I think Bubba is ready to throw his name in there and become one of them. I really do. So watch out for this 23 team. I think they are another dark horse, not for the championship, but I think a dark horse team that could potentially pull off a deep playoff run. William Byron is such a weird driver to gauge because I really have no idea how to gauge him. He's good. Yeah, it's kind of a given, but I never know what to expect from this 24 team. I feel like it's a lot of the same problem with Blaney and the 12 team. We're just continuously waiting for them to do something big, and it never happens. We thought we were seeing that in the spring of last season, and then you followed that up by going half the season with only one top 10 finish, so guess not. So yeah, honestly can kind of just copy paste a lot of my problems in the rant I had in the Ryan Blaney section, and you just apply it here. Just, swap out the names. It's pretty much the same thing. Do something big. If not championship 4, it's the 5 wins. Yeah, geez, William Byron and Ryan Blaney are the same driver. Wow, they are the same driver. Go figure. Justin Haley had a quietly good season last year. The stat sheet doesn't say a whole lot, but if you actually pay attention to him, he was just really solid. He wasn't wrecking a whole bunch of cars. He was just going out there, doing his job, bringing it back, and was pretty solid at it. Do I think he'll make the playoffs? No. Maybe unless if he, wins at a super speedway, which is very plausible considering how good he is at them. I think a lot of people are just sleeping on him because he's such an unassuming driver. I wouldn't be surprised if he did turn some heads this season. Have, some more Austin Dillon type runs of just randomly popping into the top 5 here or there. So, yeah, watch out for Haley. When I saw Michael McDowell win the 2021 Daytona 500, I thought to myself, yep, this is a cool moment, because Michael McDowell is never going to experience something like it ever again. But after last season, I'm not so sure anymore. It wasn't just the fact that McDowell finished a third of the races last season in the top 10, a third, but he was competitive. What comes to mind? Sonoma, legitimate top 5 speed and run, and Watkins Glen. The race was going to be either won by Larson and Elliott, but McDowell was right there with them the whole race. Michael McDowell in a front row motorsports car was just as legit of a threat to win a road course race as freaking Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson in Hendrick Motorsports cars. That's how you know the next gen era is Willy Wonka wacky wonky, because that is just unbelievable. As Kyle Petty would say, that's incredible. Now, I'm not expecting Michael McDowell to be no championship threat. I mean, quite honestly, those years, if he was ever that caliber of driver, have been long gone. But playoff contender? I think he's got a really good shot. Speaking of front row motorsports, Todd Gilliland. Guys, I got nothing. No offense to Todd Gilliland, I think he's pretty good. And honestly, with how little experience he has in NASCAR, the fact that he didn't make a complete fool of himself last year in the 38 car was pretty darn impressive, but come on. What else am I going to say about Todd Gilliland? Does he have, any expectations? No? Okay, moving on.
All right. No bullshit.
Pumba, not in front of the kids.
Oh, sorry.
You heard the man. No excuses, I guess. I don't know. I think he's got plenty of excuses. That 41 car has been kind of trash since Suarez left it. Look, I think Preece is a good driver, and I think he does have the potential to be a playoff caliber driver. However, I don't think that's going to be this season. Just this mid-range group of drivers that Preece finds himself in is just so stacked, and it's just so hard to tell with the next-gen cars who's going to be better than everyone else, that Preece, I think, is just kind of going to get lost into the shuffle. All I want to see out of Preece in this 41 car is just relevance. Just run in the top 10 more often than Cole Custer did, which he only did twice a year, so that's not going to be hard. So if he can do that, I'm going to feel pretty good about Preece and this 41 team moving forward once Harvick retires and they become one of the top priorities at SHR. The Noah Gragson experience has made the Cup Series, and all it took was for 4 years to become a top contender in the Xfinity Series, and everybody conveniently forgetting that this guy races like an idiot because he has a mullet and shotguns beer. How awesome of a guy is he? Am I supposed to be impressed by Noah Gragson being great in junior motorsports equipment? Wow, he had a great elite season in the car that has a history of great elite seasons. Give him that 42 car. Alright, I'll at least say this. As long as he doesn't throw up all over himself after every race, I'll say that's a pretty good rookie season. But honestly, I don't really have that great of expectations. This guy is a slow burn when it comes to developing. I mean, it took him 4 years to be great in junior motorsports equipment. 4 years. Okay, maybe the recency bias of driver development being so rushed these days is kind of clouding my judgment on Gragson, but you know what? I just don't like Gragson. I'm gonna say it. I just don't really like him that much, so maybe I'm being a little too hard on him. So Alright, to make up for his swaths of fans, because somehow this guy has a lot of fans, I'll say this. If Gregson finishes top 25 in points, I will literally breathe. I think that's fair. That Jones boy is reviving the 43 car. You love to see it. Let's think about this for a second. He was one errant block at Talladega in the spring away from being in the round of 12 in the playoffs last season. Yeah, this 43 team, they're good, and they are primed and ready for a playoff season. It's been a long time for this 43 car, and I hope they can do it because this number and everything it represents in NASCAR history in the 75th anniversary season, it deserves it. And Eric Jones is a worthy pilot behind the wheel for this 43 car. He may be kind of boring, but he is an extremely talented driver, and he is deserving of any success that he gets. So good luck, Jones. You only have the weight of expectation from 2 7-time Cup Series champions behind you. No pressure. Well, it happened a year earlier than expected, but Tyler Reddick is now behind the wheel of a 2311 Racing Toyota. I hope it was under better circumstances, but these were the cards we were dealt. As for Reddick, I think this is going to be a great opportunity for him. I think he's just going to pick right where he left off last season, winning some races in convincing fashion and also wrecking about the same amount of times. He was a dark horse championship threat. I still believe that. What bit him in the end? Inconsistency. He tended to wreck. I mean, Austin Dillon had a better average finish than him. Austin Dillon! So a loose cannon driver like Reddick joining a team like 2311 Racing is going to make for an interesting pair because they have the same amount of opportunity to win like 5-6 races as well as crash in about like 8 races. So I'm very excited to see how this pairing works out. But with the TRD power under the hood, I think we're going to see a really, really good Tyler Reddick in the Cup Series next season. And hopefully he can avenge his loss at Bristol Dirt, because dang it, he should have won that race. You know, if you were to take a Sporkle quiz of the current Cup Series drivers, the guy I would have the hardest time remembering would be Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It's not that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. never does anything. Oh no, he does plenty of things, like crash and occasionally throw in some top 10 runs in there and then kind of crash again. There's a reason he is nicknamed Ricky Spinhouse Jr. The reason I kind of just forget about him is because of the team he's on, JTG. How long has this team been in the Cup Series and done absolutely nothing? Sure, they got one win with AJ Allmendinger at Watkins Glen, but since Stenhouse has gone behind the wheel of the car, he's got a pole on the Daytona 500, and that's about it. He's just not done much, and I don't expect that to change either this season. It's probably just going to be more of the same. A couple of appearances up in the front in some super speedway races, and maybe a random mile and a half, and then wreck every once in a while. Sounds like the typical Ricky Stenhouse Jr. season to me. This is going to be a very interesting year for Alex Bowman. He's in a contract season. Ally's deal with Hendrick Motorsports is up at the end of the year, and I don't think it's likely that Ally's just going to up and leave the team. However, I could definitely maybe see them decrease sponsorship. And then where does that put Bowman? He really brings no sponsorship money to the table. And coming off of a concussion at the end of the year, that could affect his performance. And when you look at his stats from last year, they weren't that impressive. He does have one ace in his sleeve though. Blake Harris. Blake Harris took a 34 team at Front Row Motorsports and turned them into a playoff caliber team with Michael McDowell last season. With him on top of the pit box of this 48 team, I can definitely see a rebound season for Bowman and company, and I kind of hope they do. It would be really cool to see. But for Bowman, his future in NASCAR kind of hangs in the balance because, say Hendrick Motorsports doesn't re-sign him, who's going to pick him up? Lots of pressure on Bowman and company this year. They really need to do things, lots of things this year. Maybe not like championship things, but they need to be impressive. I mean, we need to see, more consistency, a round of 8 playoff appearances. They need to perform this year because of the looming contract. Oh yeah, Cody Ware is in the Cup Series. That's all I got. Like, it's Cody Ware. What do you want me to say? Oh, I hope he doesn't finish 30th every week. It's Cody Ware and Rick Ware Racing. Do we have any expectations for this team? No? Okay, moving on. The Ty Gibbs experience has made the Cup Series. Oh, help us all. I think it goes without saying that Ty Gibbs is a menace behind the wheel. He's extremely talented. I have said this ever since he first won his debut at the Daytona Road Course in Xfinity. But all the talent in the world does not excuse the actions that he has taken behind the wheel. The list of people who have had incidents with Ty Gibbs is a list way longer than it needs to be for a guy that's only been running in Xfinity for 2 years. Just 2. Not to mention some of the other outbursts of immaturity that have already reached the Cup Series, like that embarrassing debacle with Ty Dillon on pit road at Texas last season. And we know he's going to have an incredibly long leash at JGR. I mean, there's a reason it's called Ty Gibbs Racing. That's his team. Although I do have one question to ask, and it's a very uncomfortable question to ask, but it's kind of one that needs to be. How much of Ty Gibbs' potential is going to be affected with the loss of his father? It's a sucky thing to ask, but it's something that needs to be considered. We know that Dale Jr.'s career was affected by his father's passing, so that's something that's going to affect this rookie season from Ty Gibbs. And I think it'll buy him some leeway from the Cup Series garage, at least for a while. But if his shenanigans that we have seen in his Xfinity Series career, if those start popping up again, I'm not talking like once or twice in like a 20 race period. I'm talking like it's kind of being consistent like it was in Xfinity. These Cup guys aren't going to let him get away with anything. So this is going to be a very, very interesting rookie season for Gibbs and company. And if it brings in a lot of drama, I'll be sitting here with my bag of popcorn. And I want to get some front row seat tickets to see that. I almost completely forgot that Ty Dillon was still racing in the Cup Series. Wow, yeah, he's still around. He's still racing. And what's he in, the Spire 77? Oh, okay, yeah. Ty Dillon's not gonna be relevant at all this year. That car is freaking terrible. After last season, Daniel Suarez is showing that he is a legit Cup Series level driver. He hasn't had the greatest of hands dealt to him in his Cup Series career so far, but he and this Trackhouse team, they are building something. While he is in the shadow of Chastain with how incredible that one team season was last year, he's not too terribly far behind. He really should have been in the round of 8 last year if it weren't for a power steering failure at the Roval. So watch out for this 99 team. I know I've said that for like 50 other teams, but I do mean this one. This 99 team, don't sleep on him. Suarez is starting to come into his own, and they believe in him. And that's, I think, crucial for this 99 team to perform at the highest level of their ability. I would expect something fairly similar from last season out of this 99 bunch, maybe with just a little bit more consistency and maybe some less bad runs thrown in there. And I would think that's a pretty darn good season for them. Suarez and company are on the right track. If they just keep doing what they're doing and doing it well, they're going to be set in the Cup Series for a while. Alright, enough with that noise. It's time to make my playoff predictions.
Playoffs? What talk about? Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
This was very difficult to come up with because with these next-gen cars and the way the parity is, pretty much the 8th to 25th place teams in the sport are almost completely equal. It's really a coin flip between a bunch of these teams on figuring out who's going to make the playoffs. So I did my best in coming up with a playoff grid that makes sense, but, may have some surprises in there. Some of these picks may be bold. Some of the picks I have out are pretty bold, but I am going to stand by them, for better or for worse. With that said, here are my playoff predictions. Firstly, the defending champion Joey Logano should easily make the playoffs. I said that it's an odd number year and to write him off, which you should, but he has made the round of 8 every single year he has made the playoffs since this knockout format has been implemented beginning in 2014. His teammate Ryan Blaney should also make the playoffs. Will he actually do the big things that I want him to do? We'll see, but I think he should make it. Hopefully it doesn't go down to Daytona like it did last time, because I don't think my mental health could take that. Some other obvious picks include the 2 young champions at Hendrick Motorsports, Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. I see no reason why these 2 shouldn't make the playoffs, outside of a catastrophic collapse in their teams are at Hendrick Motorsports. While on the subject of Hendrick Motorsports, I think Alex Bowman will have a bounce-back season. With Blake Harris on top of the pit box, I think that this 48 team might be a low-key, really improved team. While we're on the subject of big teams, coming out of Joe Gibbs Racing, Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin should easily make the playoffs again. Denny Hamlin, while I don't think he'll be a championship caliber driver anymore, I still think he is a great driver and one of the best in the sport. And Christopher Bell is beginning to come into his own and become the leader at JGR, if he's allowed to go dirt track racing. And so he should be able to make the playoffs and try to make another run at the championship 4. Speaking of JGR, their old driver Kyle Busch will be on a revenge tour, and he should be able to make the playoffs pretty easily. That 8 team was a really sneaky good team. They won 3 races last season with Tyler Reddick, and Kyle Busch, I think, is a better driver than Tyler Reddick. That should not be that hot of a take to make. Now, will Busch be at his top elite championship form that he was at the last half of the 2010s with JGR? Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see. However, I think he still will be a contending driver this season. Also making it into the playoffs this season, the Trackhouse Boys, the Watermelon Man Ross Chastain, and Daniel Suarez should be able to make the playoffs pretty easily this season. Last year was Trackhouse Racing's big breakout season. Chastain was a top championship contender, and Daniel Suarez was an easy playoff contender. I don't see that changing at all this season. Joining him will be the 2311 boys of Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick. That's right, I have Bubba making his first playoffs, and I have Reddick picking up right where he left off after leaving RCR by making the playoffs once again. Now these are where the picks start to get a little bit tricky. Firstly, in his retirement tour, I think Kevin Harvick will make the playoffs. Kevin Harvick is still Kevin Harvick. He may not be the elite driver he once was anymore, but he's still Kevin Harvick, and I still think he has a win or 2 left in him that can qualify him for the playoffs. Now, these last 3 picks are some pretty out there bold picks. I think AJ Allmendinger will make the playoffs. If he doesn't do it by winning, I actually do think he might point his way into the playoffs. This next-gen car fits into some of Allmendinger's strengths as a driver, and with the amount of road courses in the regular season, and he's not that bad on short tracks at all, and he's been pretty good on 1.5 miles recently as well. I think he should easily make the playoffs, and he'll probably do so by winning a race. He's my pick to win the Chicago Street Course, actually. I think Eric Jones will bring the Legacy Motor Club 43 into the playoffs. Like I said, he was one errant block at Talladega away from making it to the round of 12. With Jimmy Johnson coming over, I think this 43 team, they are in their best position they have been since, quite honestly, the early 1980s. And now for my last pick to make the playoffs, I think Brad Keselowski will make the playoffs. Now you may be thinking, what? Why would you put Keselowski in the playoffs? He's washed. He was horrible in the 6 last season. You are correct. Last season was not good, but you know what else was a not good season for Keselowski? 2010. His first full season in the Cup Series with Team Penske. The team he was driving, the 12 team, was the worst team at Team Penske when they were still a pretty mediocre mid-pack team, kind of like what SHR is right now. Once he took over the Blue Deuce, that was actually the 12 team and the Sam Hornish 77 team mixed together. That's a pretty awful mid-20s team that he dragged into the playoffs with his 3 wins, and the following year in 2012 won a championship with. He has turned teams around before. He did it with Penske, and now he's doing it at RFK as the big boss. He was very much improved towards the end of last season. I think his team is going to take a big step up. He might even, dare I say, win a race to get into the playoffs. I do firmly believe that is possible. And with that, that is my 16 driver grid, and there are some pretty big names that I left out of it. So please, feel free to comment below how much of an idiot I am for not putting them in my playoff grid. I could definitely use the engagement. And as for a champion prediction, I don't know. Do you really want me to make a champion prediction? I've already talked for almost 45 minutes at this point. I want to go to bed. I'll save a champion prediction for later. It's way too early to gauge any sort of champion prediction at this point. Now that I've said my piece, I bid you all an adieu. I'll see you after the clash.